The morning sun cast long shadows across New Seoul Colony as Kim Hana walked through the hallways of Bright Hope Orphanage. She smiled as she heard the children laughing in the dining hall. 127 children called this place home. They came from all over human space. Some lost their parents in mining accidents, others in pirate attacks, and a few in the border conflicts with alien raiders. Hana had run the orphanage for 12 years. She loved every child like they were her own. The youngest was little Park Suho, only 4 years old. The oldest was Kang Do-hyun, 15 and already talking about joining the Colonial Defense when he turned 18. "Miss Hana," called out Lee Minho, an 8-year-old boy with bright eyes. "Can we play soccer after breakfast?" "Of course," Hana replied, ruffling his hair. "But finish your food first." The colony was peaceful. New Seoul sat on Taeyang 7, a rim world far from the busy trade routes. They grew crops, mined rare metals, and lived quiet lives. Most importantly, they were safe. The nearest military base was 3 days away by ship. That morning felt no different from any other. Commander Park Ji-won was reviewing supply reports aboard his ship when the emergency signal came through. His communication officer, Lieutenant Nam Yuri, looked up from her console with worry in her eyes. "Sir, we're getting a distress call from New Seoul Colony. It's bad." Ji-won moved to her station. The signal was weak and filled with static. Through the noise, he could hear screaming, explosions, and the terrible sound of energy weapons firing. "Attacking the orphanage. Children trapped. Need immediate help." Then silence. "How long to get there?" Ji-won asked his pilot. 6 hours at maximum speed, sir." "Do it, and send word to Fleet Command. Tell them we might need backup." The 6-hour journey felt like 6 years. Ji-won's small patrol fleet consisted of 3 ships and 90 crew members. He hoped whatever attacked New Seoul was long gone by the time they arrived. When they dropped out of hyperspace, the first thing they saw was smoke. Thick black clouds rose from what used to be the colony's main settlement. Ji-won's heart sank as they got closer. "Scanning for survivors," reported his science officer, Dr. Oh Minji. "I'm getting some life signs, but not many." They landed near the remains of the orphanage. The building was completely destroyed. The walls had been blown apart by energy weapons. The playground where children used to play was now a crater. Toys and books lay scattered and burned among the rubble. "Spread out and look for survivors," Ji-won ordered. "Be careful. We don't know if the attackers are still here." His team searched through the destruction for 2 hours before they found the first survivor. Choi Yuna, 12 years old, was hiding in what used to be the kitchen storage room. She was hurt and scared, but alive. "Where are the others?" Ji-won asked gently. Yuna pointed to a collapsed section of the building. "Some of us hid in the basement. The ceiling fell down. They worked for hours to clear the rubble. They found Lee Minho unconscious but breathing. 15-year-old Kang Do-hyun had protected 2 younger children with his own body. The younger ones didn't make it, but Do-hyun was still alive. 3 survivors out of 127 children. Dr. Oh Minji examined the weapon marks on the buildings. "These are Vorthan energy signatures," she reported. "But this doesn't make sense. The Vorthans usually only attack military targets." Ji-won found Kim Hana's body near the main entrance. She had died trying to protect the children. In her hand was a small device, the emergency beacon that had sent the distress call. As his team continued searching, Ji-won sat with the 3 survivors. They were in shock, but slowly they began to tell him what happened. "They came in the early morning," Do-hyun said, his voice barely a whisper. "Big ships, like nothing I'd ever seen. They didn't warn us or ask us to surrender. They just started shooting." Minho, still weak from his injuries, added, "They were laughing. The aliens were laughing as they shot at us. Miss Hana tried to get us all to the basement," Yuna continued. "But there wasn't enough time. The whole building started falling down." Ji-won felt sick. He had fought in border conflicts before. He had seen what pirates could do to merchant ships, but this was different. This was pure evil. "Did they take anything? Steal supplies or equipment?" Do-hyun shook his head. "They didn't take anything. They just killed everyone and left." The more Ji-won learned, the worse it got. The attackers had targeted the orphanage first before hitting any other part of the colony. They had used heavy weapons designed for destroying military bunkers on a building full of children. When some colonists tried to help, the aliens had killed them too. By evening, Jiwan's team had confirmed the worst. 124 children were dead. 43 adult colonists had also died trying to protect them. The attackers had destroyed the orphanage, the school, and the medical center, but left the mining equipment and warehouses untouched. This wasn't a raid for resources. This wasn't even a normal military attack. This was something else entirely. Jiwan sent his report to Fleet Command that night. He tried to keep his emotions out of the official language, but it was hard. How do you describe the systematic murder of children in a cold military report? Within hours, his communication console lit up with incoming messages. Admiral Song Taehyun wanted a full briefing. The colonial defense was mobilizing ships from 3 sectors. The news networks were demanding information. But the message that surprised Jiwan the most came from Earth itself. The Terran Council was calling an emergency session. This attack had gotten the attention of the highest levels of human government. As he prepared his detailed report, Jiwan looked out at the ruins of New Sol Colony. 3 children sat in his ship's medical bay, orphaned again by an act of senseless cruelty. The galaxy was about to learn that there were some things humanity would not tolerate. The Vorthons had made a terrible mistake. They had shown the galaxy what they truly were, and now they would face the consequences. Ambassador Yoon Soo-jin had never been so angry in her life. She stood in her ship's briefing room, looking at the evidence files from New Sol Colony. Photos of destroyed buildings, medical reports on the 3 surviving children, video recordings from security cameras that somehow survived the attack. The worst part was the audio recording. Someone had managed to capture the sounds of Vorthon soldiers laughing as they destroyed the orphanage. She had listened to it once and never wanted to hear it again. "Ma'am," said her aide, Captain Jang Woo-bin, "we'll be arriving at the Galactic Council station in 2 hours." Soo-jin nodded. The Galactic Arbitration Council was supposed to keep peace between the different alien species. They had courts, judges, and laws that everyone was supposed to follow. If anyone could get justice for the murdered children, it would be them. The council station was huge, a massive structure floating in space where representatives from dozens of alien species worked together. Soo-jin had been there many times before for trade disputes and border negotiations. This time felt different. She was escorted to the main hearing chamber. The room was filled with aliens of all shapes and sizes. The Zenthari looked like tall, thin birds with blue feathers. The Corvin had gray skin and 4 arms. The Thek moved around on dozens of small tentacles. At the center of the room sat the 5 chief arbitrators, the most powerful beings in the council. They would decide whether the Vorthons should be punished for their attack. "Ambassador Soo-jin," said Chief Arbitrator Vexathara of the Zenthari Union. Her voice sounded bored. "You have requested an emergency hearing regarding an incident in human space." "Not an incident," Soo-jin replied firmly. "A massacre. The deliberate murder of 124 human children." She activated the holographic display and began showing the evidence. Photos of the destroyed orphanage appeared in the air above the council floor. Medical reports on the dead children. The weapon analysis proving it was a Vorthon attack. Most of the council members barely looked at the evidence. A few were reading other documents. Some appeared to be sleeping. "The Vorthon Empire has violated the Galactic Peace Accords," Soo-jin continued. "They deliberately targeted civilians. They murdered children. According to galactic law, this demands immediate action." Chief Arbitrator Dolmoth of the Corvin Republic finally looked up from his papers. "Ambassador, you humans are still a young species. Perhaps you don't understand how these territorial disputes work." "Territorial dispute?" Soo-jin could barely control her voice. "They killed children." "The Vorthons claim that New Sol Colony was built in disputed space," said another arbitrator. "Perhaps if humans were more careful about where they build their settlements." Before Soo-jin could respond, the chamber doors opened. War Chief Gorthok of the Vorthon Empire entered with his delegation. The Vorthons were large, lizard-like beings with thick scales and sharp teeth. Gorthak was bigger than the others, with scars covering his arms and face. He didn't look sorry. He didn't even look concerned. "War Chief Gorthak," said Chief Arbitrator Vexthara, "you have been accused of attacking a human civilian target. How do you respond?" Gorthak looked directly at Sujin as he spoke. The attack was a legitimate military action. We eliminated a future threat to Vorthon security. Future threat? Sujin stood up. They were children. The oldest was 15 years old. Human spawn grow up to be human soldiers, Gorthak replied calmly. We have learned from experience that it is better to eliminate threats before they mature. The casual way he talked about murdering children made Sujin feel sick. She looked around the chamber, expecting to see shock and anger on the faces of the other species. Instead, she saw mostly indifference, mostly. Furthermore, Gorthak continued, the human colony was established in space that rightfully belongs to the Vorthon Empire. They were trespassers. We had every right to remove them. The colony was established legally according to galactic law. Sujin protested. All the proper forms were filed, all fees were paid. Chief Arbitrator Vexithera looked through some documents. Yes, the paperwork appears to be in order. However, the Vorthans filed a territorial claim on that system 3 days after the human colony was established. 3 days after. They only claimed it because we were already there. Nevertheless, their claim is now registered with the Council. This appears to be a complex territorial dispute that will require careful study. Sujin couldn't believe what she was hearing. Careful study? While you study, 124 children are dead. Ambassador, said Chief Arbitrator Dulmoth in a tired voice. We understand you are upset. But the galaxy is a complicated place. Sometimes unfortunate things happen in border regions. Unfortunate things? Sujin's voice rose. This was mass murder. The Council will establish a committee to investigate this matter, announced Chief Arbitrator Vexithara. We expect to have a preliminary report within 2 years. 2 years? War Chief Gorthak laughed, the same kind of laugh that had been recorded during the attack. By then, humans will have learned their place in this galaxy. Several other species in the chamber nodded in agreement. The Tech representative spoke up in a voice like grinding metal. Young species must learn respect for their elders. Perhaps this lesson will teach humans proper humility. Sujin realized she was completely alone. Every major species in the galaxy was either supporting the Vorthans or didn't care enough to help. To them, human children were just numbers in a report. She gathered her evidence files and prepared to leave. As she reached the chamber door, Chief Arbitrator Vexithara called out to her. Ambassador, we do hope this unfortunate incident won't affect human participation in galactic trade. Commerce must continue regardless of minor political disagreements. Sujin turned back to face the Council. Minor political disagreements? War Chief Gorthak just admitted to murdering children, and you want to talk about trade? Business is business, Ambassador. Emotions have no place in galactic governance. That night, Sujin sat in her quarters writing her report to Earth. She tried to find diplomatic language to explain what had happened, but the words wouldn't come. How do you tell your government that the entire galaxy doesn't care about murdered human children? Finally, she wrote simply, the Galactic Council will not act. They view the massacre as a minor territorial dispute. We are alone in this. Before sending the message, she added one more line. Recommend we prepare for the possibility that diplomacy has failed. 3 days later, her ship received new orders from Earth. She was to return immediately for emergency consultations. The Terran Council was meeting in closed session. As her ship left the council station, Sujin looked back at the massive structure floating in space. For decades, humans had believed the galactic community stood for something better than mere survival of the strongest. They had been wrong. The galaxy had shown its true face. Now humanity would have to decide how to respond. In her personal log that night, Sujin wrote, We asked for justice and were given bureaucracy. We asked for compassion and were given indifference. We asked for help and were told to accept our Place, the galaxy has made its choice, now we must make ours. Fleet Admiral Lim Kyung-soo stood before the largest gathering of human military officers in history. The massive conference hall on Earth was filled with commanders, captains, and admirals from every corner of human space. 2,000 warships floated in orbit above them, humanity's entire military fleet. The 3 surviving children from New Seoul Colony sat in the front row. Lee Min-ho, now 9 years old, watched quietly as the most powerful humans in the galaxy prepared for war. Choi Yuna, 13, held his hand. Kang Do-hyun, 16, sat straight and still, his young face showing no emotion. Behind them sat Dr. Seo Ji-ho, the colony's medical officer who had survived by being away on a supply run. He had devoted the last 6 months to helping the children heal from their trauma. The progress was slow, but they were getting stronger. Admiral Lim looked out at the assembled officers. Every face showed the same expression: cold, focused anger. 6 months ago, the Vorthans attacked a human orphanage, he began. His voice carried clearly through the silent hall. They murdered 124 children. When we asked the galaxy for justice, we were told it was a minor territorial dispute. He paused and gestured toward the 3 survivors. These children watched their friends die. They heard alien soldiers laughing as they destroyed everything these kids loved. The galaxy's response? A committee that might issue a report in 2 years. Admiral Park Ji-won, now promoted after his actions at New Seoul, stood up. "Sir, my fleet is ready. We await your orders." "All fleets are ready," replied Admiral Lim. "Every human world has contributed ships, supplies, and personnel. We have mobilized our entire civilization for one purpose: to teach the galaxy that some things are sacred." He activated the massive holographic display behind him. It showed a map of Vorthon space, 47 star systems spread across a region larger than human territory. "This is Operation Final Lesson. We will not simply defeat the Vorthons. We will make it impossible for any species to ignore what happens when you attack human children." Captain Cho Min-soo, leader of the elite Ghost Squadron, raised her hand. "What are the rules of engagement, sir?" "Simple," Admiral Lim replied. "Military targets only. Any Vorthon civilian who surrenders will be protected. Any Vorthon child will be evacuated to safety before we begin our attacks. We will show them how civilized beings wage war." The room buzzed with approval. Even in their anger, humans would not become monsters. Engineer Hwang Ji-yeon stood up next. She was young for such an important position, but she had designed humanity's most advanced weapons. "Sir, the planet killer devices are ready, but I must ask, are we really prepared to use them?" Admiral Lim's expression didn't change. "We developed those weapons hoping we would never need them. The Vorthons have changed that. If we must demonstrate our power to protect the innocent, then yes, we will use them." Lieutenant Colonel Bae Sok-jin commanded the ground assault forces. He had grown up in an orphanage himself before joining the military. "My Marines are ready, sir. We've trained for urban combat and hostage rescue. Any Vorthon civilians we encounter will be treated according to the Geneva Protocols." "What about the other alien species?" asked Commander An Hyo-jin. "They might try to interfere." "Let them," Admiral Lim said firmly. "Any species that stands with child killers will share their fate. Any species that stands aside will be left alone, and any species that wants to help us protect the innocent will be welcomed as allies." The planning session continued for hours. Every detail was discussed and refined. Supply lines, communication protocols, backup plans if things went wrong. This would not be a rushed attack driven by emotion. This would be the most carefully planned military operation in human history. During a break, Dr. Seo Ji-ho approached Admiral Lim. "I want to come with the fleet," he said. "Doctor, your place is with the children. They need you here where it's safe. The children are healing, but they need to see justice done. They need to know that the people who hurt them will never hurt anyone else." Admiral Lim looked over at the 3 survivors. They were talking quietly with some of the younger officers, seeming almost normal for the first time since the attack. "Very well. But you'll stay on the command ship, far from any fighting. Young Kang Do-hyun approached them. At 16, he was tall for his age and carried himself like a soldier already. Admiral, I want to enlist. You're too young, son. I'll be 17 in 3 months. That's old enough for non-combat roles. Please, sir. They took everything. From us. I need to be part of making sure they never do it again. Admiral Lim studied the young man's face. He saw determination, not anger. Purpose, not hatred. We'll discuss it when you turn 17. For now, your job is to heal and help the other survivors do the same. The final planning session lasted until dawn. When it was over, the assembled officers stood and saluted. Not the formal military salute, but something deeper, a promise to the memory of 124 murdered children. As the officers prepared to return to their ships, Admiral Lim made one final announcement. In 6 hours, we will broadcast a message to the entire galaxy. We will give the Vorthans and their allies one last chance to surrender the individuals responsible for the New Seoul massacre. After that, diplomacy ends and justice begins. Captain Cho Min-soo asked, and if they refuse? Admiral Lim looked out the window at the fleet gathering in Earth's orbit. 2,000 warships from across human space, crewed by volunteers who had left their families to seek justice for children they had never met. Then we will teach the galaxy that humanity protects its own, and we will make sure that no alien species ever again mistakes our compassion for weakness. The broadcast went out 6 hours later. Ambassador Yoon Soo-jin, back on Earth after her failed mission to the Galactic Council, delivered the message personally. To the Vorthan Empire and all who support them, you have 24 hours to surrender those responsible for the massacre at New Seoul Colony. This is not a negotiation. This is not a diplomatic protest. This is your final warning. The response came 12 hours later. War Chief Gorthak himself appeared on galactic communication networks, surrounded by his officers. Humans threaten the mighty Vorthan Empire? We laugh at your weakness. Come if you dare. We will show you how real warriors fight. Admiral Lim received the message aboard his flagship. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders. Signal all fleets, he said, calmly. Begin Operation Final Lesson, and may whatever gods are watching forgive us for what we're about to do. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace like a deadly storm. 47 star systems, 47 simultaneous attacks. The Vorthans had never seen anything like it. Admiral Park Ji-won led the main assault on Vorth Prime, the Vorthan homeworld. His fleet of 300 ships appeared at the edge of the system and began their approach without any attempt at communication. The time for talking was over. Sir, reported his communications officer, the Vorthans are demanding we identify ourselves and state our intentions. No response, Ji-won ordered. Begin the attack. The first targets were the orbital defense platforms, massive structures designed to protect the planet from invasion. The human ships moved with deadly precision, their weapons firing in perfect coordination. Within an hour, every defense platform was destroyed. On the planet's surface, War Chief Gorthak watched his defenses crumble. He had never seen such organized destruction. The humans weren't fighting like angry barbarians. They were fighting like surgeons, cutting away exactly what they wanted to remove. Send all available ships to intercept them, he roared. The Vorthan fleet launched from their bases around the planet, 200 warships, the pride of their military. They had conquered a dozen worlds with these vessels. Surely they could handle one human attack force. They were wrong. Captain Cho Min-soo led her Ghost Squadron in the first strike. Her pilots had trained for this moment for months. They knew every weakness in Vorthan ship design. They knew exactly where to hit to disable the enemy without unnecessary destruction. Remember, she broadcast to her pilots, we're not here to prove we can kill. We're here to prove we can win. The battle was over in 3 hours. Half the Vorthan fleet was destroyed. The other half surrendered when they realized they couldn't even touch the human ships. Advanced human shields and weapons made the fight completely one-sided. But the real shock came next. Instead of demanding surrender from the planet, Admiral Jiwan began targeting specific buildings: military headquarters, weapons factories, training centers. The humans had somehow obtained detailed intelligence about every important target on the planet. Captain An Hyojin led the ground assault on the Vorthon Military Command Center. Her Marines landed in the capital city expecting heavy resistance. Instead, they found confusion and panic. The children, she ordered her troops, find and evacuate any Vorthon children first. No one gets hurt accidentally. The Marines moved through the city with mechanical precision. Every Vorthon child they found was brought to safety. Medical teams treated their injuries. Translators explained what was happening in simple terms the young aliens could understand. "We are not here to hurt you," the Marines told each frightened child. This is how civilized people fight wars. War Chief Gorthak tried to rally his remaining forces, but his communications network had been destroyed. His command bunker was surrounded. His escape routes were blocked. For the first time in his life, he felt truly helpless. When human Marines finally reached his bunker, they found him sitting alone in his command chair. All of his officers had either fled or been captured. "I am War Chief Gorthak," he declared. "I demand to be treated as a prisoner of war." Captain An Hyojin removed her helmet and looked at him with cold eyes. "You are a child killer. You deserve no honor. But we are not you. You will be treated according to galactic law." Similar scenes played out across 47 star systems. The Vorthons had expected a brutal human revenge. Instead, they got something far worse: a demonstration of complete military superiority, combined with moral authority. On the military academy world of Korthvar, Lieutenant Colonel Bae Seokjin faced a unique challenge. The planet was home to thousands of young Vorthons being trained as soldiers. Some were as young as 8 years old. "Sir," reported his aide, "intelligence indicates the Vorthons are planning to use their own children as human shields." Bae's jaw tightened. "Then we change the plan. We go in fast and extract every child before beginning the main assault." The operation took 18 hours. Human Special Forces teams infiltrated every training facility on the planet. They moved through the buildings like ghosts, stunning adult guards and carefully collecting every child they found. When the evacuation was complete, Bae's forces began their attack on the military facilities. But they broadcast their actions on every communication channel, making sure the galaxy could see what was happening. "This is how humans wage war," Bae announced. "We protect the innocent, even when they belong to our enemies." On 17 different worlds, similar evacuations took place. Thousands of young Vorthons were brought to safety before human forces destroyed the military targets around them. The psychological impact was devastating. Vorthon soldiers found themselves fighting an enemy that cared more about Vorthon children than their own government did. Many simply laid down their weapons and surrendered, but the most terrifying moment came at the end of the first week. Fleet Admiral Lim Kyung-soo arrived at the edge of Vorthon space with humanity's secret weapon, the planet killer ships. The galaxy watched in horror as one of these massive vessels approached an uninhabited world at the edge of Vorthon territory. The planet had no life, no resources, no strategic value. It was simply there. "This is Fleet Admiral Lim Kyung-soo," his voice broadcast across every communication channel in the galaxy. 6 months ago, Vorthon forces murdered 124 human children. Today, we demonstrate the price of such actions. The ZBC weapon fired once. A beam of pure energy that lasted exactly 10 seconds. When it stopped, the planet was gone. Not damaged, not broken, completely gone. Nothing remained but dust and radiation. The silence that followed was absolute. Every species in the galaxy suddenly understood that humanity possessed the power to erase entire worlds, and they had just proven they were willing to use it. War Chief Gorthak, now a prisoner aboard Admiral Jiwan's flagship, watched the recording of the planet's destruction. For the first time since the humans had arrived, he looked genuinely afraid. "You're all insane," he whispered. Admiral Jiwan stood beside him watching the same recording. "No, we're parents, and you hurt our children." Across Vorthon space, remaining military commanders began surrendering their forces. The message was clear. Humanity could destroy them all whenever they chose. Resistance was not just futile, it was suicidal. But Admiral Lim wasn't finished. His next broadcast was directed at the Galactic Council itself. To all species who called the massacre of children a minor territorial dispute, you are next. Any government that supports child killers will face the same fate as the Vorthans. This is not a threat. This is a promise. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what humanity would do next. 6 months later, the Vorthan Empire no longer existed. Their military was scattered, their leadership dead or imprisoned, and their remaining population lived under human occupation. But the humans had not conquered them in the traditional sense. They had liberated them from their own government. Dr. Seo Jiho walked through the former Vorthan capital, now a peaceful city where human and Vorthan children played together in the parks. The transformation was remarkable. Without their warrior culture forcing them to fight, many Vorthans had proven to be skilled farmers, artists, and teachers. Dr. Jiho called a young Vorthan named Kestar. She was 8 years old, the same age Lee Minho had been during the attack. Will you read us another story? A group of mixed human and Vorthan children had gathered around him, eager for their daily story time. These sessions had become popular across the occupied worlds. The children didn't see species differences, they just saw friends. Of course, Jiho smiled, sitting down among them. What story would you like to hear today? Tell us about the Bright Hope Orphanage, said Minho, now 10 years old and one of the teachers in the new integrated schools. Jiho's smile became sad, but warm. That's a good story to remember. Once upon a time, there was a place where children from all over human space found safety and love. While Jiho told his story, Ambassador Yoon Sujin stood before the Galactic Arbitration Council once more. But this time the chamber was very different. Human warships surrounded the council station. Planet-killer weapons were aimed at the structure itself. She was no longer asking for justice. She was delivering an ultimatum. The old order failed, she announced to the assembled representatives. You had your chance to stand for something greater than politics and profit. You chose indifference to the murder of children. Now humanity will ensure that such indifference has consequences. Chief Arbitrator Vexathara, who had once dismissed the massacre as a minor incident, now looked terrified. Ambassador, surely we can negotiate. Violence is not the answer to political disagreements. Political disagreements? Sujin's voice was cold. You watched child killers walk free and called it politics. Those days are over. She activated a holographic display showing the new document she carried. This is the Bright Hope Accords, a new set of galactic laws with one simple principle. Any species that deliberately targets civilian populations, especially children, will face total annihilation. No committees, no investigations, no delays. Justice will be immediate and absolute. The chamber erupted in protest from dozens of species. They complained about human aggression, about the violation of galactic sovereignty, about the destruction of centuries of diplomatic tradition. Admiral Lim Kyung-soo's voice cut through the noise, broadcast from his flagship in orbit. Perhaps a demonstration would help you understand the new reality. On the chamber's main screen, images appeared of an uninhabited star system at the edge of council space. One of humanity's planet-killer ships was approaching the system's star. You have 1 minute to sign the accords, Admiral Lim announced calmly. If you refuse, we will demonstrate what happens to stars when we apply our technology to them. Silence that followed was absolute. Every species in the chamber suddenly realized that humanity didn't just have the power to destroy planets. They could destroy entire solar systems. Chief Arbitrator, Vexathara's hand shook as she reached for the signing device. This is unacceptable. You cannot threaten the entire galaxy. We're not threatening the galaxy, Sujin replied. We're protecting it. From now on, any species that harms children will answer to us. Any government that allows such harm will be replaced. Any individual who commits such acts will face human justice. One by one, the representatives signed the accords. They had no choice. Humanity had become too powerful to resist, and their cause was too just to argue against. The Thek representative, speaking in his grinding metal voice, asked the question. They all feared, what happens to species who violate these accords? Admiral Lim's response was broadcast to the entire galaxy. Ask the Vorthons. Oh wait, you can't. They no longer exist as a military power. 3 years later, the changes were visible everywhere. The former Vorthon worlds had become centers of learning and culture. The Galactic Child Protection Initiative, funded by resources from the dissolved Vorthon Empire, operated schools and hospitals on every populated world. Kang Do-hyun, now 19 and a lieutenant in the human space forces, stood at attention as Fleet Admiral Lim pinned a medal on his uniform. The young man had become a symbol of human resilience, an orphan who had turned his tragedy into a mission to protect others. How do you feel about your new assignment? Admiral Lim asked. Honored, sir. Protecting refugee children across the galaxy is exactly what I want to do with my life. Do-hyun would lead a new unit composed of volunteers from dozens of species, all dedicated to ensuring no child anywhere faced what he had endured. On Earth, the memorial to the new Soul Colony, victims was finally completed. Lee Minho, now 13 and captain of his school soccer team, stood with Choi Yuna, now 16 and studying to become a doctor, as they read the names carved in black stone. But the memorial wasn't just about the human children who died. It also listed the thousands of Vorthon children who had been saved during humanity's campaign. The message was clear. Every child mattered regardless of species. Dr. Seo Jiho gave the dedication speech, his words broadcast across the galaxy. We didn't become monsters to fight monsters. We became the guardians the galaxy needed, but never deserved. Let this memorial remind all species we are watching, we are remembering, and we will never again allow the innocent to suffer while the powerful look away. The ceremony concluded with a moment of silence for all the children who had been lost, and a pledge to protect all the children who remained. Later that evening, Admiral Lim stood on his flagship's observation deck, looking out at the stars. Captain Cho Min-soo joined him, her ghost squadron having just returned from patrol duty in the outer systems. Any regrets, sir? She asked. Lim was quiet for a long moment. About the war? No. About the necessity of it? Every day. The galaxy is safer now. Children across hundreds of worlds sleep better because they know we're out here. That's what matters, Lim agreed. We didn't choose to become the galaxy's guardians, but someone had to do it. On the bridge behind them, communication signals flowed in from across human space and beyond. Reports from patrol ships, updates from diplomatic missions, requests for assistance from worlds seeking human protection. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had become its conscience. And in systems across known space, children of dozens of species grew up knowing that somewhere among the stars humans watched over them. The price had been terrible, the necessity had been absolute, and the result was a galaxy where hurting children was no longer acceptable to anyone. In his personal log that night, Admiral Lim wrote, "The orphans of New Soul Colony can finally rest in peace. We have built them a memorial that spans the stars, a galaxy where no child will ever again face what they endured. It is not the world we wanted, but it is the world we made, and it is good."